Hey guys, it's Jeff and David here. We're going to go over our El Burrito folder and some of the folders that we've carried in the past and reasons why we came to the design of the El Burrito and kind of what we like on folders and what we don't like to carry on folders.
Yeah. We've been talking about doing a small practical folder pretty much since the beginning, about 5 years ago. And Jeff and I have carried, as you'll see, some pretty similar knives, even though we hadn't met until about 9 years ago. You know, just growing up in kind of a similar area of California. We carried fixed blades on and off, but for legal reasons, folders were the majority of what we carried. And then we switched to fixed blades probably, 7 years ago?
Yeah, when we moved to Nevada, we started carrying more fixed blades.
Yeah.
In California, you can carry a fixed blade as long as it is
open and suspended from the waist. So if you flip it in your pocket, and we are not attorneys by any stretch, but we haven't caught any flack from law enforcement for clipping a fixed blade in our pocket because it's visible and you can see it, or you can run it on your belt. I had a habit of running way too large of a knife on my belt when I was in my teens. And Jeff and I carried some big stuff for a while.
Yeah.
But Jeff, out of your stuff, what's one of the first ones that you carried?
So like one of the first knives folders that I carried was this SOG Flash 2. So these are an assisted folder. They have a similar lock mechanism to how the El Burrito functions. It's kind of a lock bar that pushes up into the back of the blade. It's using an assist mechanism though. So I don't really like assisted folders. I did this for a while when I was younger. They're nice to get out, but now you can't close it with one hand. You have to push this against your leg or your other hand.
And sometimes the detent is still a pain in the butt. Like you'll go to halfway close it and it'll still pop open.
Yeah, you'll get it down to here.
Yep.
Like right around there, it'll just pop back. They also usually have an external lock on them, and then if that gets put in place, now you're stuck and it doesn't open.
Yeah, you're screwed.
So they're not a great, like what I would say, like a defensive folder option.
Yeah.
They're cool because they mimic an auto for people that are into that, but automatics aren't all they're cracked up to be either most of the time. Something like an El Burrito with its lock design opens just as fast and closes just as fast.
Yeah, and safeties on assisted knives and safeties on autos. You know, it's kind of similar to the philosophy that Jeff and I have on our carry guns too. Usually, if it's something that has a safety barring a single action only, like a 1911, if it's a double action, single action, or I mean, we don't own any strikers with safeties on them, but even the double action, single actions, we keep the safeties off. Just because you don't want that to get bumped on and then all of a sudden you reach for your gun and you're like, oh crap, my safety's on.
Yeah, it's not usually helpful and you're gonna forget it. That's just pretty much how it is.
Absolutely. So
how about you?
Yeah, the first folder I did, well, the very first one, as it is with most kids, was like those little 3-blade Swiss Army tools. But this is an old Buck 3-blade slip joint that I carried for years. I'll still carry it on and off, but I got this when I was maybe 12, and that was like the first knife that I had. And then as we got older,
I kind of switched over to a lot of cold steel stuff. Like a cold steel holdout. This was probably a little bit later, but this is a big knife. A lot of the cold steel stuff, they're made as fighting folders. Which is kind of what our design inspiration behind the gin folder was to have just a ton of blade in that size package.
Yeah, we kind of went with, for those of us that grew up watching Nut and Fancy, we went with a second kind of cool philosophy on the gin folder, and it is very practical. You know, we carried them until the El Burrito came out as like a daily folder. We know some guys that still carry them on the daily, and the benefit to the large folders in places like California, where for the most part
you can't do a fixed blade.
Yeah.
You can get the maximum blade length. So if you're gonna carry something in your pocket, it's not a lot bigger overall than a fixed blade of the same size. But you get a huge blade.
And that's kind of the philosophy behind the Espada that you carry.
So I carried this. This is a modified Espada. We took the clip plate off for the wave deployment because on this knife it's terrifying. It is, you can still one-handed kind of throw this thing out, but the Espada is kind of the largest folder that I know of that's even made production. And these are really cool, and they're super tough. They're probably the strongest lock in the industry.
Yep.
But this thing weighs, I think, close to a pound. It's huge. You're never going to use this for utility tasks.
Yeah.
If you pull this out in a crowd, they're going to freak out. So
yeah, and that's, I mean, the same goes for the 4Max that I carried for several years. And Cold Steel did a very brief run of these in the US, then they switched to Italy, then they switched to either Taiwan or China. I'm leaning towards Taiwan. But yeah, Jeff and I had very similar styles of, we want the beefiest, strongest knife that we can carry. And the sacrifice of that is I can't clip this into a pair of gym shorts and walk around with it. It's like putting a brick in your pants.
Yeah, it really depends on what kind of clothing you're wearing. If it's wintertime and you have pants on, Levi's, jeans of some kind,
yeah,
you can carry big folders.
Yeah.
And it won't weigh you down. But in the summertime, shorts, anything like that, it just starts to get...
We're both wearing shorts right now, and that
Yeah.
dictates the gun you're carrying, the folder you're carrying, you know, it factors in.
Another thing with overbuilt folders is something like this stiletto. This is a custom. They're too thick. Like a lot of these really thick folding knives, this is thick and a small grind, a short height of the bevel. And you can't even cut yourself on this knife. It's dull.
Yeah, and even if we sharpened it, it's just your sharpening angle would be thinner than the actual grind angle of the knife. And so for a while, when I was in my late teens and getting more into it during summertime carry and stuff like that, Spydercos were a very big thing for Jeff and I. I think I got this when I was maybe 15, 16. And I'll still carry this. The H1 steel does not hold an edge fantastically, but boy is it corrosion resistant. And I'll clip this into my shorts if I'm gonna go into a lake or a river or something like that.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Spydercos is they're light and they're thin. That's one of the reasons we carry them. Here, we're gonna do this in grams because apparently we're Europeans today. Now we're setting grains right now. So you can read that better than I can. 82.7 grams for that one.
Yeah, and this is a Spyderco, what is this, Police?
That's the Police, yeah.
So this is like a 4 or 5 inch blade.
Yeah. And it's running steel liners, so it's gonna be stronger.
And that's over the limit for this scale.
Yeah.
It's probably like close to 4 ounces-ish. Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, like, again, a good option for like California, large blades. The steel on this guy is, I think, K390, super rusty. It will rust on you super fast.
It will hold an edge like nobody's business, though. And that was the cool thing with K390. And Spyderco, one of the things that we also like about them is they will take any of their base models, be it the Dragonfly, the Endura, the Mannix, and they will try different steels. So people can get a feel for K390, CPM 15V, ZDP 189, and you can play around with it and see which one you prefer.
Yeah. We've kind of come to the point now where our favorite steel for pretty much all tasks is CPM 3V.
Yeah.
This has our heat treat on it, so we do our in-house heat treat a little bit differently. We're using a low temper from Laren Thomas. It's a 400 degree temper?
I think it's about a 400 degree temper for about 2 hours. You double temper after cryo, and we were sitting, 58, 59
58, 59. It's a low HRC, but 3V in this particular configuration
is tough.
Really, really tough.
Yeah.
What's cool is when you use this thing at this temper, the Peters heat treat is similar, maybe a little bit less tough, a little bit higher hardness.
Yep.
But this one is really cool. The edge will roll before it does anything else.
Yeah, we haven't had to deal with. We've been putting all of our prototypes through their paces. And we've had really good luck as far as edge retention. The Peters ones will probably be a little bit harder.
Yeah, probably around 60, 61, maybe 61.5. Depends what we have them do it at.
Yes, and we are planning on potentially a very small release of fully in-house done blades, full complete folders within probably the next month. And then we'll be doing, you know, this will be a mainstay for us. We should have plenty of these coming through Peters, and we're pretty happy with it.
This one was also a in-house heat treat, and we hacked a bunch of wood with this thing, and it doesn't have any edge chipping. It's just really cool, that heat treat process. But the gin folder is probably not going to come back. We have a couple of them left in stock, but it was just so much work to get this thing done that even at the prices that we have them listed for, I think we're probably just scraping by. Yeah,
we would spend, and by we I mean mostly our other two counterparts who you can hear running stuff in the shop, they would spend hours
just fitting
for a single knife. And so the bronze phosphor washers that are nestled inside, they would hand turn those, hand lap them. There is so much effort that goes into making a knife this big, feel this good,
and have good centering.
Good centering, good lockup. It was a lot, but we wanted to go all out with our first folder. We wanted that second kind of cool, and we wanted something that was a lot lighter than some of the other stuff. Well, this is technically not our
second folder. Yeah, our first folder we did was the FTW Razor, inspired by the CMFTW original Force Smile that Ed Calderon owned.
Yep. So we did an updated version where the aluminum was pocketed out on the inside. And for those of you guys that don't know, there is an Easter egg hiding under the handles on these. There's an Easter egg that's hiding under the handles on all of our folders. So if you ever take your folder apart to clean it, there's a message in there. But
so I actually have another CM commissioned FTW Razor, but this was the one that Ed carried in Mexico. Has potentially a body attached to it, but we went to this version, which was our take on it, our fully CNC'd version. And I carried this for a while after Ed gave it to me, and then I've carried our version quite extensively, but it's kind of big. The protruding like rhino horn coming off the top is kind of a problem. It will poke you.
And we thought about that. We did it on purpose.
It's as a impact tool.
Yeah, you can do a lot of pain compliant stuff with this without ever opening the knife. But if you have this clipped in your pocket, tipped down like this is, you got a little bit of a honker right there. And you know, it's still a really cool folder. We did 50 of these?
There's not that 40,
there's
50.
Not that many. So we have talked about doing a version 2. If we get more time freed up on machines, we will most likely revisit it, maybe go thinner with the handles.
Thinner handles, thinner blade stock.
And
we were still kind of like learning what we could do manufacturing wise when we started these. We can go thinner. As you can see now, we have substantially thinner blade stock, thinner grinds, more 3D geometry in our grinds. Those original ones are just kind of a flat grind.
And these were done out of the same plate material that the first Talaxas were done out of, the Jackalopes, and the first keys, right, that we did with Billy. So this was a very cool folder. And then first locking folder was a lot of effort, again, to get it to where we wanted. And we had some people that complained about the lack of thumb studs. And one of the things that you'll notice with a lot of our folders,
no thumb studs.
And some of that, actually most of it, came from our classes with Ed over the years, where we're working with dead pigs as an organic medium. You put this in and out of someone, and there's two things that will snag a knife up. Number one is big thumb studs, big plates. And the second is on this Mannix. As much as I like it, that's large choils. And this is another reason why we don't have
sharpening choils.
And this is something I'll have to do another video on, sharpening wise. When I sharpen these, I don't use a choil. And if you practice your technique a little bit at home, you won't need a choil either. But apart from this stud, which you can remove if you want.
We wanted it removable since you can open the knife from the lock. I mean, that's probably the number one way to open it. The thumb stud's kind of secondary. but we wanted the thumb stud removable and not to be an issue if you're going to carry it as kind of a defensive option. It's a small knife, but being small, you can have it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar in weight to this Okapi, and I carried this for a really long time, partially because it's so light and a lot of the Piper influence and everything like that.
And it has really good geometry.
It does. It's really thin behind the edge. It's a weird blade steel. It's some kind of spring steel they use in South Africa, but
boy, do they work.
They work really well. It's just kind of a flimsy knife design. I mean, like there's reports of the South African gang members taking these blades and snapping them off in people because there's not a lot holding it on. It's one tiny pin with wooden handles.
Yeah, and if that's your philosophy of use of leaving a knife in someone, then by all means do it. But we wanted something that was similar in size to, as we got older, we switched to more fixed blade stuff, and then folders became more of a secondary beater tool for us.
Or a fun knife to play with.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something like this
Fred
Perrin triple action. This is a custom Fred Perrin. But like these are really fun. This one doesn't flip backwards as easily, but like a fidget toy kind of thing as a carry knife, an EDC tool, like something you can play with in your downtime.
Yeah, and folders are also one of those things. If you're going to classier events now and then, like weddings, funerals, that sort of thing, a folder draws a lot less attention than a fixed blade if you're pulling it out for utility stuff. And so same with like your John Gray folder, you know, every now and then we want to put a little bit of money into a nice classy folder that you can carry. And so this was that one we got at Blade a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, I traded John Gray for some stuff.
And John Gray, for those that don't know, is a much bigger influence in how we grind stuff than people think. He was always a big proponent of make the knife as absolutely thin as you can, torture test it, and then, you know, you can bring your edge back if you need to. But he was always very big on keep that between, you know, 5 and 10 thousandths behind, 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch behind the edge. And it's going to be a pleasure to cut with. Now, the clip that you're seeing on this Sebenza came out of kind of a cross project between the Gin folder and the Burrito. So the clip that's on here is made by Piranha Knives. These are made out of titanium in the US, and they work very well for just a nice thin lightweight option. That's what usually comes on Sebenzas. For this one, we wanted to switch to a shorter clip because if you put your titanium clip on this one, it's gonna take up half the knife. So Lyndon drew this up from scratch. He did I would argue, a phenomenal job at doing the lowest profile clip to size and weight ratio that you could come up with. But as an added benefit, with a little bit of modification, you got to make the hole a little bit bigger. These will work on Sebenzas and they will work on Piranhas. So
we'll probably have some available for Piranhas and Sebenzas down the line.
Yeah. It just, I felt like it classed the knife up a little bit more, and it was a pretty simple add-on. So it's just a bigger hole than the factory one. That's another thing we did with the Burrito that we kind of switched from on the folding Gin, is we switched to 440 hardware instead of 630. This is still 440, right? Or is this 630? No, this is 440.
I think it is.
But the clip screw was 632. We just wanted to shrink our hardware a little bit, and
it's what we used as the thumb stud on some of them. I think that might be what we end up going with on the production knives.
Yeah.
We might have actual like turned thumb studs available as a secondary option.
Yeah, and that's something that we wanted to do as well. We wanted to have a base model option that was going to be affordable. Because that's the biggest thing with a lot of the knives that you're seeing here, barring a very small handful, is they were relatively affordable. So for US manufacturing, we're going to try and keep our cost as low as possible. And then we'll have aftermarket options that you can bling your knife out with and modify it as you please. Now I'm trying to think. Yeah, you can talk about the 110.
Yeah, so like one of the folders we carried, or I carried a lot at least, was a Buck 110. This is kind of an interesting sheath. It works as your deployment mechanism outside the waistband. So I know some people that have actually used this quite extensively. It's a little bit scary. If you're sitting down, it will get you. So you got to be kind of careful with how you deploy this knife. But the thing with the Buck 110 is this is kind of the original fighting folder. I mean, Emerson and other tactical knife makers have come out with, you know, fighting folders like or Almar, similar in design or size, but the Buck 110 for a long time, bikers, everybody would carry these things because, as you can see, there's no large choil. It's a long enough blade, and they're really sharp, really pointy.
The only downside with them,
they're really, really heavy. This probably weighs 10 ounces.
I think it's 10 to 12 ounces, depending. And Buck has some very cool, thinner, lightweight versions out now that they're using either G10 or carbon fiber for their handles. And then the smaller version of the 110, the 112, they're also doing that as well. But we either carried a Buck 110 or we knew like an uncle or a father or grandfather that carried one. It is kind of it's an American icon as far as knives go. And it's extremely practical. You know, you got to think about, I know my grandfather carried one for years. They're great knives, but they're heavy and they're big. So, you know, I'm not about to drop a Buck 110 into my shorts in the summer because it weighs almost the same as a spare magazine. But, you know, going back to some of the Spyderco folders, these two were Nut and Fancy editions. If you're part of his Patreon and you pay him money, you can get access to these. But this was a Honey Badger folder that he did with them. The collaboration, if I'm remembering correctly, was just the white colorway. But this was a very light, practical knife. And I got this, I think, February of 21. That was right before I moved up here. This one is a real similar weight to the El Burrito.
With plastic handles.
With plastic handles. They do have some steel liners, but the liner lock, I don't trust liner locks as much as I used to, and it's one of the reasons that I quit carrying folders for a while. I had a liner lock folder close on my hand probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I just quit carrying folders for a long time after that. Now, there are some liner locks that are extremely solid. Emerson comes to mind. This was a left-handed CQC7 that I ground into a drop point after going to one of Ed's classes, and he looked at that and was saying, why are you carrying a Tanto? Yeah, why are you carrying a Tanto? Tantos are very cool. And American Tantos, you got to give Lynn Thompson credit where it's due. They are very strong. It is impossible to snap a tip on them. However, that little nub that sits out at the end of the American Tanto, you can say it how you want, that will dull out incredibly quick.
It's always the first part of the knife to dull because you're using it to open boxes and everything. You're not using the tip, and it's out there. It's just, and then resharpening and getting all the lines to match up is always a pain.
It's a pain. And to Emerson's credit, because they chisel grind their knives, there's only one edge to sharpen. It is much easier to match up. It's much easier to mate. The Tanto that I like the most in current production, if you even want to call it production, is that John Gray folder. And that's because John went so thin with that blade that it's a joy to cut stuff with. Another thing that you'll notice with a lot of liner locks and frame locks especially is if you're using something like titanium as your handle material. Titanium is a lot softer than your blade steel and it will wear quicker. So this is a overseas production version of Auxiliary's Pocket Bowie folder. This is a fantastic folder, and we love what he did with his lock, the lock design, the clip, the carbon fiber inserts. His are running on bearings. We switched to cage bearings on these. We found a company that does US made ceramic cage bearings in a Delrin housing. So when you go to take your knife apart, it's not going to be like some of the Lion Steel folders where there's loose ball bearings everywhere. And I think they switched to cage bearings as well. But anyone that's taken apart or modded a bearing run folder will know the pain of losing your bearings. So these are all captive. And we want to make our folders easy to disassemble, clean, and reassemble. That's one of the reasons there's so few parts. This was my only gripe with, well, one of my few gripes.
Taking cold steels apart with the multiple
layers and the washers, because
yeah.
they'll do bronze phosphor washers and then a thin nylon one, and
that's to center their blade up because they have production inaccuracy, like tolerance stacking issues.
Yeah,
being overseas production. I mean, they work great. Yeah. But when you go to take the knife apart and put it back together, now you have this sandwich that you have to deal with.
You do, and this folder is a little bit different than a lot of their other folders. So when you would get something like the Espada, this one was only set up for right-handed carry. My gripe with that, in case you can't tell, I'm left-handed. You guys can drag me in the comments for that. A lot of their folders was just a simple clip switch. You would undo your screws and swap them. Same with Spyderco's, same with a few other companies out there. This one, you had to pull, these pins run all the way through the knife. You had to pull these out, and because there's only one other screw holding the whole spring mechanism inside here, this whole thing would go bloop, and you'd have to try and pinch this back, get your pins in, and swap it. So that was something else.
Not the most friendly for disassembly.
It is not the most friendly for disassembly. So these are going to come completely ambidextrous, and you can set it up how you want. That's one of the reasons the lock works on both ways. The clip can be swapped, same on the folding gin. And then the thumb studs, depending on what we go with, we've gone back and forth on dual-sided studs, single studs. We're still working that out, but that's just a simple screw that you flip to the other side. So, you know, it's going to be a really user-friendly knife for left or right-handed people. That's another reason I liked a lot of the Spyderco's. And I got this, probably 4 years ago. I was on a road trip and stopped at a knife store in, I believe, Arizona. And this was made out of CPM 15V. For those of you guys that don't know, this was a Laren Thomas and I believe Triple B handmade project. 15V is really cool. You can't find it anywhere.
No, I can't get it.
I think Spyderco pretty much has dibs on it, apart from getting some bar stock here and there.
Yeah, it's able to be hardened really hard. It maintains some corrosion resistance, as far as I know.
It's got really good corrosion resistance, really good edge retention. It's just, it's impossible to find. So I, you know, being the nerd that I am, I was like, ooh, 15V, let's get a hold of that. Now,
hard to sharpen though.
It is hard to sharpen. It's very, even when I'm doing that on a belt, you can tell the belts wear down a lot faster than some of the other stuff. Now, one of the things that liner locks and frame locks, to kind of bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, they'll make them out of titanium, or they'll do not necessarily a hardened steel liner. And as that lock opens and wears, it will eat into the lock face. And it will either wear too deep, or that lock just isn't strong enough, and that can just shear close. Now, Chris Reeve and this one by Auxiliary. Chris Reeve runs a ceramic ball bearing on this version. This is an old Sabenza 25. And then this Auxiliary one, they've got a hardened steel insert that's in there. I really like hardened steel inserts. I haven't seen one fail.
No, on frame locks, that really eliminates the issue of playing with it too much and having the knife not lock upright anymore.
Yep.
We're using these are prototypes in 17.4, and they've been okay, but we did see, slight deformation, maybe over thousands of openings.
Yeah.
So we switched to a S7 tool steel lock that's heat treated the same as the blade.
Yep, and it's the same way that his prototype here has got 17.4 on the lock bar. We switched to hardened S7 on the production ones. So the production ones will come with either kind of like this matte look to them, or whatever colors Peters gives us back. It'll probably be kind of a gold, like a lot of our blades. But it should be just a very stout, very robust folder. Now, tip breakages. This is another one of the gripes that we have had with folders that we've carried over the years.
Yeah.
Not so much with Spyderco's with the leaf-shaped blades, but some of the really delicate points that are on knives. And most of the time we tell people, don't pry with your knife. The Almar Eagle, you know, if you pried with this being in VG10, you could probably lose that tip pretty darn quick. So the 3D geometry, we talked a little bit about this in our other videos, but we've been doing 3D grinds on all of our knives for years. It's just really accentuated with how thin this grind is back here. So when you're doing your carving tasks, you're cutting down cardboard, opening your mail, this is gonna be an absolute joy to cut with. And then this part here that may look incredibly stout is still about the same thickness as a lot of other folder blades that are out there. I'm trying to find, here we go. In case you can't tell, we have a lot of folders on the table.
Yeah.
This is very thin still at the tip. It's just we went so much thinner than a lot of other production blades out there that it looks like there's a striking contrast. But this is going to make sure that your tip stays nice and stout. And with 3V at the heat treats that we're running, I don't foresee tips breaking off. It's the same way we did a more subtle version of that on the folding gin, and with that rib running all the way up to here. Again, we stabbed these into 2x4s. We've done all kinds of stuff with them, and I've yet to see a tip pry off. I've yet to hear of one being pried off. So yeah,
it's just something we're able to do with our 3D machining and the way we do our grinds. You don't see it with a lot of other, even shops that do USA manufacturing. They're usually holding their blades sideways, and they come in with an end mill, and like how Tops does it. And a lot of them overbuilt their grinds. That's the only way that they can get tips strong enough, or the tips are too thin. So it's just one of the ways that we're able to kind of improve on our manufacturing and make it more usable for different roles.
And there's nothing wrong with doing the horizontal method. It's just you're limited to either running a flat grind, or if they're using blade grinding machines, you can go and do a hollow. You know, like this is a really good example of an aggressive hollow that was done on a blade grinding machine. That tip up there though is going to be pretty delicate. It's prone to snapping, and anyone that's snapped a folder tip off that doesn't have access to a belt sander or a belt grinder
and the knowledge of knowing how to use it correctly,
it's very easy if you snap a tip off. Usually if you snap a tip, you will work on sharpening the front edge and bringing it back, and then also kind of dipping the top a little bit. It's a very hard thing to do, and that's another thing with all of our blades. Same with the Burrito. If by some miracle you do manage to snap a tip off, send it back in and we will repair that and fix it to the best of our abilities, and depending on
replace it.
We have yet to completely replace knives from tip or blade breakages.
The only knife we've completely replaced that I know of is one that was used so many times it was sharpened back to the point of being pretty thick behind the edge. It wasn't unusable or like unfixable, but I think we ended up giving him a new knife. That was Gabriel. And then I had a family member that had a house fire that an LVSC went through, and that knife was ruined, but still fixable. The hardness on it being 3V only dropped, I think, 1 point. HRC, I think it went down from 61 to 60 or 59.
So, and the G10 of course got fried, but we gave him a new knife anyways. So we will cover all that stuff for life. And it doesn't matter if you bought it through us or bought it through the secondary, as long as it's not a clone, which we have yet to see of any of our stuff, thankfully. But if it's something that you got on the secondary market, be it eBay, Facebook groups, anything like that, if you need it sharpened, you need it tuned up, send it on in and we'll take care of it. That's one of the reasons that we're here. So this was just a brief glimpse into a lot of the stuff that we carried growing up. And then around the time of our early 20s, we switched to fixed blades. And now that we have the Burrito, because I carried a folding gin for a while. It's great. It's about the same size as carrying a second phone in your pocket though. This has been a new staple in our pockets, and it's so light and so thin that all of us at some point in time, when we get home at the end of the day and we go to take a shower, you know, you take your shorts off and you hear a clunk and you're like, what the heck was that? I thought I pulled everything out of my pockets. It's still in there. You forget that it's on you because it's so light and so thin.
The only thing on the table that's really probably comparable in weight are some of the plastic handled like Spyderco's. This is 2.3 ounces
with the clip.
Yep.
2.2, 2.1 without the clip.
So the only thing that's comparable are some of the plastic handled, like this doesn't have liners. This is pretty light. but being a full aluminum construction, you get a little bit more strength. There's no flex to this aluminum. We actually pocketed the inside.
Yep.
Was it 66 grams?
66 grams, and then this is the Delica footprint, but it's done in a it's not the Harpy, but it's like a Hawkbill blade that they do, also in H1. I'm a really big fan of corrosion resistant steels. Number one, because I sweat on them a lot, and number two, if you're in and out of the water or you're going to the pool, going to the lake, it's just nice to have.
54.
Yeah, so it's a little bit lighter, but if you take something like this ProTech, I think this
Similar design construction.
very similar design construction. These guys, are these pocketed out on the inside? These are not. So these are solid aluminum. So that was 66 grams. This is going to come in at, what, 85. So it's going to be a little bit heavier. It's roughly 23.4 grams for an ounce. Sorry, this is the only scale that we had that was tiny. Yeah, for a lot of blades in a similar size, and this is going to be
81.7.
yeah, so this is going to be a little bit heavier. Let's see.
Even something like this is a super minimal Duke style. I think this is like actually a Fred Perrin collab, but like this is really thin, using like a bent sheet metal handle, and that's coming in at roughly the same weight.
Yep. Yeah.
58.66.
Yeah. That's still been one of our biggest philosophies with everything that we've made, is within reason you make it as light as possible, as thin as possible, and this is kind of our culmination of everything we've learned over the last 5 years. And we've been incredibly happy with the prototypes. We've been running them for a couple of weeks now, and within the next month or so we should have some completed ones to go out. And unlike the folding gin, which we don't think will make a return,
This will probably be a production staple. We'll keep this in stock. This will be our like regular,
our flagship
folder.
Yeah. So we've been really happy with it. As always, if you guys have any questions, feedback, any of that stuff, you can shout at us in the comments, shoot us a message, and we'll get back to you as fast as we can. So
Thanks.
yep, thank you.